All right, and we are live. Welcome to another episode of Subtle Asian Voices. This week's edition, we're doing online dating successes, but the marriage edition, featuring my really good friend Mina. Thank you so much for joining us, girl. I appreciate you.
Thank you for
So
having
yeah,
me. This is so exciting.
yeah, I'm really glad you could make it. So this is just a quick introduction. So Mina, why don't you introduce yourself? Where are you at? What you like to do for fun? Name, all that good stuff.
Okay, so I've known Daphne for a long time. My name's Mina Lusano, soon to be Kim. I'm married, but I haven't changed my last name yet. It's been a kind of weird year. Originally from Maryland, Montgomery County. Been in DC with my husband for the past year and a half. And something fun about myself. I'm a second degree black belt. I've been training most of my adolescence, and I had to stop because I injured myself, but and I have a dog. So
hmm
sorry if you hear in the background. I'm still training her.
Oh my gosh, girl! Like, I didn't realize you stopped because if you got injured, go see a PT. You can probably go back into it. You never know. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
definitely.
Or come see me. Yeah. And then myself, I'm Daphne. Again, nice to meet you guys. I'm located in Los Angeles, California. Currently, I've been here for about 3 years. Yeah, I know Yuna for a long time, since like before 2010. So it's been over a decade. But yeah, so what I do, I'm a physical therapist and I just moved to LA like, oh my God, almost 3 years ago. I haven't seen Mina in a while. So it's like, I'm really glad we get to catch up today. Yeah.
Yes.
Exciting stuff. So yeah, go see a physical therapist, dude. If you're gonna like continue your black belt, you should definitely keep going. um, Okay, so just a quick lowdown of what's going to happen. Basically, we're going to have an hour interview with Mina talking about her experience as online dating and her husband and her marriage and what that's been like since she met him. And then if you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat. We would love to hear from you guys and see what you guys have to ask Mina based on her experiences. And then quick plug, if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe to our video so you can stay in tuned with whatever else we have going on. Okay, so you ready, Dina? Let's get started.
Yes.
All right. So, Mina, tell us a little bit about your dating history, as long ago as that was, if you remember, um, as much or
So
as little as you'd like.
yeah, so I guess for me, I grew up, I'm the first daughter of my family, and so my dad's super overprotective. I had all the uncles around. I actually wasn't allowed to date in high school until I was 17. And so that's like the day I turned 17, I had my first boyfriend.
Oh, that was
And
quick.
that was like the day we planned it. And he's like, why can't we just say now? I was like, no, when we're 17. So I was a goody two shoes. So I dated him through high school. And then I only had three relationships. My second relationship was 7 years. And it ended up not working out because we just weren't headed in the same direction, but I got a lot from it. And then with my third relationship, that's where I had turned to online dating just to kind of
Mm.
meet new people. And because, like, I feel like nowadays everything's online and that was the way to go. So that was my first stab at it. And it ended up working out. My third boyfriend turned into my fiance and now husband. So here we
Oh, and
are.
then that is a happily ever after we all hope for, girl.
Yes.
So I guess like based on your past relationships and like your dating experiences, was there a specific like timeline that you thought you'd meet your future husband because you had a really long term relationship like all throughout like into college and then
Mhm.
afterwards. So what was that like in trying to like I guess settle that mindset with what you currently went through?
So with that relationship, I really thought that that was my like forever and done. My parents met in high school and they were high school sweethearts, ended up getting married six
Oh,
years later. Yeah, and so for me, I was like, okay, the first relationship, I wanted that and it wasn't meant to be. But the second relationship, it lasted so long and I really thought it was going to head that way. What ended up happening was he was not ready to get married. He had goals that he wanted to achieve. And for me, I thought that by like the latest 25 years old, now I'm 28. So, I didn't stick with my plan and that's okay. I've learned that, you have to be flexible because if you put yourself into a position where you feel like this is the only way I can go forward, you just end up getting really hurt. And there's no reason to be hurt because there's no plan, there's no deadlines. Like life is life. You just got to
Dude,
roll with it.
it's crazy because life comes at you fast too. Before you know it, like there it is, you graduate from college and you start working, and all of a sudden, like you get this whirlwind of stuff because now and then online dating, and then now you're married, which is
Yes.
great. Um, so tell us about your online dating experiences. How many matches did you have to sift through before you met Jung?
So I I gave myself about a month after I ended my second relationship, and I was debating which apps I wanted to go through because you hear, oh, Tinder is for if you want to do a little something extra, and
That
you
booty
can go
call.
on match.com. Yeah, and you go on match.com if you want to find your husband. But for me, I ended up subscribing for Match and I paid just because why not give it all? And that was the worst experience. I matched with nobody on there except one guy who was much, 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 much older. And it was, please don't go on Match. There's so many other apps that have like free options that young people actually use. I was on Bumble and I was also on Coffee Meets Bagel. And so for
Oh,
me, I kind of rotated mostly between Bumble and Coffee Meets Bagel. And my first two relationships were Asian guys, and I had never been with someone outside of that. So I wanted to kind of open up the field to see what would, what's best for me. I'm not full Asian, so there's
there you
nothing,
go.
there's no set for me saying I have to be with an Asian. It was what I was comfortable with. We went to school with a lot of Korean and Chinese friends,
Hmm.
and so I was accustomed to it, but I ended up going back and forth between Bumble, Coffee Meets Bagel, and I became a serial dater. I was going on a minimum of three first dates a week. You were there for a lot of
Dang.
it. Oh,
Dude,
it was
first dates are
so
exhausting.
I was so tired, but I ate a lot of good food, so you can't, you get a lot out of it. And it was just fun to meet a lot of different people, and especially because this was my first time ever meeting someone through the internet, and like you message them back and forth, but there's only so much you can know and ask. And then when you
Right.
meet in person, that's when you realize, okay, this is what the person's like, this is what their voice sounds like, this is how
Mm,
they are, and you get all those things you can't necessarily get from a message.
right.
Um,
That's true.
but it was so exhausting. Oh my
Dude,
gosh.
I do remember sitting in your basement, was like having wine. You're just like, this is so hard. And I'm like, girl, I don't know what that's like, but
Yeah.
props to you. 3 days a week is a lot, but at least, hey, you got your meals done, got ate some good food. When you saw the person's profile and you saw them in person, how many of those matches were you like, oh, this is exactly what I imagined, versus like, oh, I didn't think that this is what it would be like? Was there a lot of that?
There was only one person that his photos didn't look like him in real life, and it was
Oh,
not to his benefit. Everyone else, they pretty much look like their photos. Um,
okay.
at the time, I had really short hair too. I had just cut it 2 months ago. And so I had posted photos when I had long hair and I had short hair just so people could see what I look like with long hair and then what I currently look like. But if you ask
Gotcha.
my husband, he was like, "Oh no, I think she has long hair." And then he saw me at the first date and he's like, "Oh, that's definitely short hair."
Oh
So,
my gosh. So when you were sifting through your dating profiles, did you have any like specific requirements that like, yes, I have to have this, or like something that you immediately like swiped left on or swiped right on?
um, I think you just had to, like if like from the first photo, if I felt like I had good vibes from it, it was like, first it's physical attraction. Do I find you attractive? And I
Hmm.
guess I do have a preference. So most of the guys that I would swipe right on were either Korean or Chinese or Caucasian. And that just ended up being what it was. I
Gotcha.
actually only went on first dates with either Korean or Chinese guys. But um,
Gotcha.
yeah, I think that was what it was at first. And then, I guess education and what they did for a living, because not so much because they had to have like a certain job. It was more just what
Right,
would
right.
we have in common to discuss, and, what is your background compared to mine to see where we have similarities, because I think that's
Yeah.
important. So,
It is so important so you can have those conversations, and how you connect with someone is based on your core values, right? And I feel like when you
mhm,
find a match, you kind of want to get those like not set in stone per se, but kind of have that out there in the open so that you at least know what you're getting yourself into, or to see if you're even a match, you know?
mhm.
Um, So some audience questions. Does your husband enjoy that you can protect him from bad people? Going back to your black belt.
Um, so he thinks he's stronger than me, and we have yet to decide who really is, but I think he feels better knowing he can protect me,
Oh,
but that I think it's more I can take care of myself. So I think he enjoys
true.
that.
Have you guys actually tested that, like, like face to face?
Well, it's so like taekwondo is mostly like your legs, so my arms are super weak. So like if we arm wrestle, I'm gonna lose, but like my legs are, I don't know how you test that. My legs are very strong.
Get it, girl. Get them squats
So
in. Another
yes.
audience question. I feel so inclined to ask about the weirdest, worst, or best dates coming from your dating app experience. So,
Hmm.
what was your weirdest date, your worst date, and your best date?
Okay, so worst date. Well, I don't want to say worst, because I don't think that any of them were really bad. I mean, we ate
That's
food.
good.
There was one where I didn't get food. We just went to get bubble tea, which is fine. I'm not saying you have to buy me a meal, but you know, it kind of helps when you have a meal because there's a start and there's an end. If you just go and get coffee, it's like, when does it end? It ends if, you want it to or not. But what if you want it to end and it can't? So that was probably like I guess, worst because we
Mm.
didn't vibe very well, or in my mind, we didn't vibe. And I just didn't know how to excuse myself from it. So buy food as a safeguard. It doesn't have to be
Okay,
fancy, but that's good.
gotcha.
Um,
Okay, heads up,
weirdest
guys.
date. Yes, weirdest date is probably I went actually it was fun and it was weird. So I met with a guy at Pinstripes, which is a bowling alley that does food. And so that was fun and that was cool. And then he wanted to go get coffee after. And so I was like, okay, well, there's like Starbucks in the area. And he's like, oh, let's go try an espresso. And I had never gone to the Nespresso store, but they do free samples. So we went
Oh,
to
I
the
didn't know that.
mall. We went to the mall and got free samples of Nespresso to continue our coffee date. And I was like, this is weird. Like to me, that's weird. Like, I don't know.
Wait,
I don't know.
where was the espresso from? I'm really curious. Was it Starbucks or was it like
No, we
Peeps?
we lit we literally went to Nespresso in Montgomery Mall, the store,
Oh,
and we got samples. And then we went
oh
downstairs and drank it. Yeah. I was like,
oh,
yeah, it was
dang.
weird.
I
It
feel
was
like
that
that
was
would have
probably the
vibe.
weirdest.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that would have given me that vibe. Like, oh, this guy is cheap, like free Nespresso. Like, what the heck?
And I mean, we did go to Pinstripes, and it's pretty pricey because we did do bowling too. So I guess I can see, but I don't know. It was just weird way to end the date. So because we had to
Yeah,
then
yeah.
drive from point A to point B separately because I didn't feel
I
comfortable to ride with him. So
Oh, dude, yeah. Never ride with a guy on the first date. You just never know. I would never ever accept going into a random stranger's car that I had no idea who they were, where they came from.
yes,
Um,
better to be safe.
Brian's saying if two people can't vibe over boba, that's a red flag. So FYI. Um,
Yes.
so in terms of, I guess, the challenges that you had with online dating, then what were some of the challenges? Because like you had meeting people and then kind of not knowing who they were at first. Like what other challenges did you face with just being on apps?
I mean, I think for me, it was the rejection because sometimes the rejection isn't clear cut. Like, I'm a very
Mm,
straightforward person. And so I've never ghosted someone. If they asked me if they wanted to, I had a guy ask me, I want to meet again. And I said, I think you're a great person, but I don't see this going somewhere. But I said it to him like that. I said, there's nothing wrong with you. I just don't see us going anywhere further. I don't want to waste your time or my time because I'm because I had been dating for so long and I felt like I need to find the right guy and finish, I made it very clear on every first date I went on. I'm not here to just casually date and mess around. I hope that's not your intention because I don't want this to continue because it's not gonna, like, you're not gonna get anything from me. Um,
right.
and so I think the other challenge with that was there was guys that were weirded out by that, and that's fine because if they're uncomfortable, that means they weren't in the place to be ready and it wasn't meant to be. Um, but it was definitely like not hearing back from people or them coming up with like strange excuses that just tell me like you just don't vibe with me. But they would like come up with like the strangest reasons to cancel last minute.
Dude,
And
that's
then
wild.
I think because I was serial dating, I just got burnout and I was on the verge of just giving up and just saying, you know what, I put myself through a lot these past, it was 2 months, 3 dates a week for 2 months. And I was like, I'm really tired because I've met so many people and I just need to figure out myself because I hadn't been single for almost 10 years. Um, and the night that I was going to delete all the apps was the last night. It had snowstormed, and I said, I'll just see and go on and see who I can meet up with. And one of the 2 dates I had set up with was actually with my husband. So it's almost
Ooh,
like it was
okay.
meant to be in a
Oh,
strange way.
the universe heard you, girl. It was like, okay, no more of these like challenges for you. Here you go. So let's ride
Yes.
that train then. So what was the one thing about your husband's profile that caught your eye when you saw
So
it?
he didn't really put anything on his profile, actually. So his personality is so he's a lawyer, and if you meet him, he's kind of like what you would think of a lawyer. He's just very like, doesn't say too much, but when he does, it's very just he's answering you, but not answering you. So his profile literally said occupation lawyer and like where he said at a law firm, and that was it. Like nothing
Oh,
else. But he had some nice photos. And so on Coffee Meets Bagel, he actually had, I guess, liked my photo first. And so he popped up in my list. And I kept swiping through his photos because I'm like, is this guy Korean? Because he has a Korean name, but he didn't look Korean. And then I'm flipping through and I'm like, okay, so he has a lot of like friends. He went to school. And then the last one is him with his mom at a dry cleaners. And I was like, oh, he's Korean. Okay. And so I was
got the
like,
confirmation.
yeah, and I was like, we'll give it a try and we'll just message and see how it goes from there. And he ended up like drilling me with like a million questions, and I just kept answering them, but I didn't really know what to ask him because he just had question after question after question. And I was like, okay, I guess that we'll have to meet up so I can ask you questions.
Well,
But
hey, there you
very
go.
secretive. Yes.
Interesting. What were his questions like? Were they kind of just like general questions about your personality, or was it kind of just like very like pointed, specific questions that you had to answer?
So it was so because it was snowstorming, I had wrote him and said, I'm home from work because I can't go out. And he's like, oh, what are you doing? I was like, I'm watching a TV show. And he's like, what are you watching? Oh, do you like it? Do you like to watch those kinds of things? What else do you like to do in your free time? And it was just like, as I'd answer, he'd have another one prepared. And it just kept like flowing. And I was like, okay, so I guess it was
Yeah,
just trying to figure me out as a person, I guess, but
I
nothing
see.
too like nothing too on the nose, like, oh, so what do you do for a living and what do you like about that? And
Mm,
it was just more just like, I guess hobbies and like just casual stuff, small talk.
gotcha. So like getting to know
Yeah.
you stuff over chat. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then how long did you guys chat for before you finally had the first meeting in person?
So we had chatted on a Friday. Actually, it was a Friday of your birthday dinner, which was on the same block that he lives on.
That's right.
So
Oh my gosh. That's such a long time ago.
crazy. It's so crazy because literally the restaurant is like four doors down from where he is. And
Mm,
so we passed by him, but we ended up chatting that Friday and then we met up for our first date on Monday at 8 o'clock in DC. And I remember because that was my only date in DC, I said, I don't like the city. I don't like driving in the city. I don't know how to drive in the city. I'm super anxious. And we chatted Friday. We both ended the chat, said, okay, I'll see you Monday. Didn't chat all weekend. And I was like, this is weird because a lot of the guys have texted me, like, oh, good morning, how are you? And just, they would like follow up with me and nothing,
yeah.
nothing. And so Monday at
Nothing.
lunchtime, I text him and I'm like, are we still on for tonight? Because I haven't heard from you like once. And he's
Yeah.
like immediately, he's like, yes, can you still make it? And I was like, yeah, I'll be there.
My
So
God. How anxious are you that you didn't hear from him for a full like couple days after your like after the first one? Like after you started chatting.
well, it was definitely weird because at that point I was used to guys like messaging me all the time and me just, casually responding. Like it was
Hmm.
going on three first dates a week meant I had to keep up with three guys worth of messages plus talking with new guys because I just needed to play through the numbers. I hate to say it like that, but
It
I
is a
just had to
numbers
figure
game.
out I had to figure out what do I like, what do I not like, what is like the dating like not market, but like what are people like looking for in a partner and what do I want
Right.
in a partner? Because I thought I knew and I didn't. So
Yeah.
it was just a lot of that.
So, a question from the audience. So, what do you and your husband bond over, and what keeps the relationship interesting?
Mm, what do we bond over? I guess we're both very competitive people. And
I can see
so
that.
we bond over just being really good and working really hard. He definitely works a lot harder than me. And he's an only child and he's like cares so much about his family. And for me, I come from like a really big family. Like my dad's one of eight, my
Hmm.
mom's one of four, and pretty much both sides of my family is all in the DMV area here. And
That's
so I'm
crazy.
constantly surrounded by them. And I've been blessed by that, but it was important for me to find someone that also had really strong family values. And
Hmm.
so that's probably one of the things that really stood out to me, and that he throws himself into his work and then some. um, and I appreciate the hustle because I see it and I have been dragged into the hustle, so I do help
Mm,
with things here and
there you
there, but I
go.
think it's made me a better person too.
That's awesome. I think that's so important too, because those I know your family is huge. Like you always talk about you having all your family over all the time, and I feel like if someone didn't vibe
Yeah,
with you in that way, you wouldn't be able to connect with them really well. Just because you're
yeah,
surrounded, but just like the sheer amount of time you spend together, that alone kind of makes up your schedule. If someone doesn't want to join you in that, I feel like that'd be really awkward and just not it would just wouldn't
hmm,
go flow well.
yeah.
Another question: when you reject guys, have you ever used the phrase "It's not you, it's me"?
No, because I don't think it is me. I mean,
It's
well,
really you.
I mean, indirectly, I guess I have said it's me because I'm not into you, so it is me because I'm not into you. Is that okay?
I mean, you should, yeah, whatever. I feel like honesty is the best policy, girl. And then I feel like a lot of guys aren't used to hearing that from women. So they need to hear that, yeah, women can say it's really just you. It's not has like this to do with me.
Well, the
Ladies out
one
there,
guy
don't
that
be
asked
afraid.
me, yeah, I mean, the
Hmm.
one guy that did ask me, I just told him, I said, I just don't see us going anywhere. So it wasn't necessarily me or him, it's just us. There was no us. That was all.
Fair. That's fair. That's fair. All right. So back to these questions that I have for you. Do you know what Jung's reactions like to your profile was like? Did you guys ever talk about that?
So we did.
Uh,
Um, can we be a little PG-13?
yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know. My family might see this. So so I have a huge tattoo on my back, and it's actually my family's crest that was designed by one of my uncles. And so we have like over
That's
10
so
family
cool.
members that have it. But it makes me look kind of like a party girl gangster. And so he
Hey,
thought
there
I
you
was like
go.
a so at first he was like, "Oh, I like her face." And he swears he didn't see my butt. All the guys I've dated have been butt guys because I'm very Asian looking on like the upper half, but my bottom half is Latina, and that's like literally the split. That is the
Girl,
split. And
girl,
so
you know
so
how
he
many
saw
Asian
my
girls would kill for a butt?
profile. Yeah, well, he saw my profile and thought I was like a party girl that was just like DTF, and I was like completely the farthest thing from it. Like
You
completely
really
the
are.
farthest thing from it.
Oh
But
my gosh. So
but
so
I
that
guess we had a good chat.
okay. But so that segues, I guess, in the first meeting when guys first saw each other in person. What was that like?
So I was very pretentious. He put down he was 5'11", and I wasn't sure that he was, because that is another thing that people do lie about is their height. And so
Always.
I wore my 4-inch heels because I'm 5'5.5" exactly since like I was 15 years old. I haven't grown, I haven't shrunk. So I wore 4-inch heels, and I was like, if he's taller than me, he's not lying. So I wore my tall heels, and so he comes in and he's coming from work, and he is taller than me, but I look at his shoes and he's wearing sneakers, or not sneakers, like Jordans, and not the same thing, Jordans. And I was like, does
Interesting.
this guy really work at a law firm as a lawyer? And then he tells me during the date he changed his shoes. I'm like, okay, because you don't look like you just got off work. But
So was he suited up and then wore Jordans?
So the law firm he was working at was a smaller law firm, and so they only dressed up for court days, and he didn't have court that day. So he was dressed more like business cash, like dress shirt, jeans, and
All
Jordans.
right.
So
Desert jeans and Jordans. I like
yes,
that.
yes.
I feel like at your wedding, you should just wear Jordans just for funsies, and you should wear those 4.5-inch heels that you wore on your first date. It's kind of like a reminiscent thing.
Well, the shoes
Oh
I
my
got,
gosh.
they are 4.5 inches, so he will be taller. He didn't
There
lie.
you there you go. Was he surprised at how tall you were? Because I mean, I know because women have to put like their height five like their height on our profiles, right? I guess if you
Yeah.
want to disclose it, you can, but
So we went to Chico, which is like a smaller, fast cash place. And I was like standing in the back because it's a very long, narrow place. And he's looking for me and he's like, "What are you wearing?" I was like, "I'm wearing a green jacket." And then he looks like kind of like up at me. He was like looking down for me and he's like, "You're really tall." I was like, "Oh, it's my shoes." He's like, "Oh, okay."
was
So
his face like just like confused?
he was just kind of like, oh, interesting, whatever. And then because he didn't know for sure, he never asked me if I had a long or short hair. My profile had photos of both. Um, but he did ask me, he's like, "Oh, so you cut your hair short. Do you like short hair?" And I was like, "Well, I just did it because I wanted to just start again. But no, I like longer hair." And he's like, "Oh, okay, good." I was like, "Why do you not like short hair?" He's like, "I prefer longer hair." So he never said he didn't like
Okay.
short hair. He just said, "I prefer longer hair."
Good
Okay.
wording. That was good wording. Dude, I remember that short haircut though. You rocked it. If I ever want to do it again, you should.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah. So I guess how long did you guys date before you and like your husband wanted to be exclusive? Like when did you know that you were, this is the guy I want to continue a relationship with?
Yeah. So we both went on our first dates and we both had another date after that we didn't discuss about until after we had become exclusive. So after that other date I went on, which was the boba guy, um, I decided, I don't know if that guy's for me, but the lawyer guy was interesting. And like on our first date, it was very loud. So we were talking, but we couldn't really talk too much. But I had good feelings from him and what we could discuss. It seemed like it was going somewhere. So I waited a week. I wasn't going to message him first just because I was busy with life. I was honestly very tired. He also didn't message me for a week. And so we were both just waiting. And then I was like, okay, if he doesn't message me by Monday night when I get off work, I'm gonna message him and ask him if he wants to meet up again. Well, Monday, like noon again, he's like, "Hey, so I had a great time with you. Do you want to meet up?" And then we didn't end up. Our first date and our second date was 2.5 weeks apart. I was like,
Two and a
I
half
don't know,
weeks?
because I was in exams because I was in college. I was doing exams, and he
Right.
was super busy with work. And so that was when we were able to meet up again. And it was on our third date, which ended up being just a few days after our second date because I was like, I just, I want to just meet up with him again and really know that I asked him on our third date. Mind you, I haven't really been in dating scene, so I don't know how like people decide it's exclusive or not. Like I'm very like, "Oh, will you be my boyfriend or will you be my girlfriend?" So I asked him on our third date when I came over to his house. I said, "So am I your girlfriend now?" He's like, "What?" I was like, "Because if you want to keep seeing me and you want to, do things and move forward, I don't just do things with guys that I just hang out with." And so he's like, "Okay." And I was like, "So am I your girlfriend?" He's like, "Yes." And that's how we became very, very awkward. He told me he's never had a girl ask him like that, but
Well, girl, you
that's
went for it. You
that's
knew what you
me.
wanted. Yeah, as you should too. I feel like you from your experience, do you feel like guys have appreciated the fact of how direct you were, or were some of them like kind of taken aback by that? Because you and I are very direct people. Usually, it's like all been like, it is what it is. Like, and that's how it's going to be. Take it or leave it, right?
Yeah. I think guys think they want a direct person. But usually what happens is when you're with someone that's very direct, they tend to also be somewhat controlling. So I'm very type A. And if I know I want something done this way and you think that way is better, I will debate with you over why my way's better. And so I think that if the guy is indecisive, if you're an indecisive guy, look for a girl that's just straightforward to the point. Your life will be much easier. I promise. We're usually right. We're usually right. So just roll
You
with
hear that,
it.
guys? We're usually right. End a sentence. That's it.
Yes.
Just take it or leave it. Actually, don't just leave it. Just take it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So then, I guess going along those lines, like after you asked, I guess you asked him to be official. Um, so when did you guys start being able to like be comfortable with each other and to like discuss like life goals and like future families? Like someone from the audience asking, have you guys discussed raising a family and like how many kids? Like when were you able to have those conversations?
So because I was very upfront from the very beginning about I'm not dating just to date, I'm dating because I want to figure out are you husband material and like future father material. Um, we still had like the honeymoon sweet stage when you first start dating. And so
Oh,
like we kind of would casually talk about it. And then I would say, do you want to meet my family? I want to meet your mom if she's really important to you. So we ended up meeting each other's parents, I think within 3 months. But before becoming like completely casual, which is I guess the stage when you start to gain weight and you can like use like I could not use the bathroom at his house for 4 months. And he's like, if you need to go, just go. And I was like, I can't because I don't feel that comfortable yet. And it made him like anxious. Like, is there something wrong with me? Do you not like me? And I was like, I still had like the butterflies. And I was like, I can't.
oh
Um,
my gosh.
but I think once we got past that and I got to be more comfortable, he was more comfortable, and we really saw each other's persons for who we are when we have all of our guards down. Um, we were able to move forward from that, and then it became more serious within that year. So it was April, and then by December of that year, I actually moved in with him in DC.
Wow.
Yeah, on
Gotcha,
Christmas.
gotcha.
So
Well, hey, you knew what you wanted too, and I feel like you guys would get along really well. Like I remember first meeting like your husband, and I was like, "Whew, I like how they are together." So I'm really glad you guys worked out. But have you guys? So how many kids do you guys want? Just putting out this an audience question. Was wondering.
okay, so he's an only child. So I
Mhm.
told him, you're an only child, but aren't you sad you never had siblings? He said no, but if we when we have kids, I would want to have more than one. He was thinking two. And then I came from really big families. So I said I want three. I'm one of three. I said I want three, maybe four. So right now we're between two and four, which is a big
Okay.
difference, but
Well,
I guess it just depends.
it's like an SUV versus like a full blown like minivan. Like which one do you guys do? Yes, you do, right?
Yeah. Well,
All
I told
right.
him we should prepare for the full-blown minivan, and then if we decide to only have two, then we just have extra space, and that's fine.
There you go. And you can go camping in your minivan and like pack your whole trunk full of goodies.
Yes.
Um, so I guess like a audience questions that are coming through. So what were the qualities that made you want to continue hanging out with him? You said he was driven, family oriented. Was there anything else that you were like, wow, I like this guy, and I like the third meeting that you wanted to, make things official?
I think he just made it really easy. I felt like honestly, I felt like a girl and like a princess because I'm very strong and independent. If I just want to do something and someone's like, "Oh, just hang on a minute," like, no, I'm just gonna do it by myself. And I've always been like very aggressive. I can fight. Like my dad made sure I can take
Yeah,
care of myself. But when I was
as
with
you should.
him, but when I was with him, I felt like I could be a girl and just be taken care of. And like he would say, "What do you want to eat? We'll go anywhere you want to eat." And I told him I'd never really been in DC. So he made it a mission. Every time we went on a date, we'd go to a new restaurant and it was in a different part and we go around and he took me to different places. And so it was really easy to be with him.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. I love that he wanted to show you DC too, because he's mainly living in DC for a lot of the time, right?
Hmm.
And then is his family also from the DC area? Like where in Maryland is his family from, or Virginia?
So his family's actually from Virginia. So they're
Okay.
from between Vienna and Springfield. But then his parents are in DC and he's been in DC now, I think 8 or 9 years.
Gotcha. Okay.
So he was here through when he was in law school and then just stayed. So
Gotcha. Oh yeah, for people who don't know the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia, like right next to each other. So we call it the DMV. If you can be either from DC, Maryland, or Virginia, everything kind of blends together. So there's that.
yes.
Um, so going back to family, how did they react when they found out you guys met online? Because it's like a non-traditional way of meeting people, right?
So actually, it's funny because my family was the one, it was my aunt that I had been living with. I was staying with my grandparents because when I ended my second relationship, we had an apartment together and I decided to move out. I said, I'll continue paying through the lease, but I can't be here because I need to move forward. So I stayed at my grandparents, and my aunt that was living there said, you should try online dating. I heard from this girl, it's going really well. And then even my mom was like, oh, yeah, that's like the new thing. Everyone's meeting their husbands on there. And I was like, oh, you just go online. It's like shopping for clothes. So they actually were the ones that pushed me in that direction. So they
Okay.
weren't surprised at all. I think maybe the amount of dates I was going on was a bit surprising to them. And
Yeah.
then how quickly, because I mean, 2 months to find someone that you really vibe with is very, very short amount of time. Um,
Hmm.
but they were happy that I was happy. I think at the
Yeah.
same time, they also didn't want me to just force myself to just make something work just because I needed it to work by a certain
Gotcha.
deadline. So,
Gotcha. How did his mom react? Because his mom is Korean, right? So I feel like Asian
hmm
Asian families in general are a little bit more conservative in that sense. And so
hmm
I know like when I tell my parents like I'm online dating, like, oh, be careful, like don't talk to strangers, like make sure someone knows where you are at all times. Like that was their worry
yeah.
when they found out. So how did Jung's mom react?
So I guess because he's a guy and he was already in his 30s. Yeah, he had already met girls online, and he actually hadn't dated too many Korean girls. So he's full Korean. He hadn't dated too many Korean girls, and so when his mom saw my picture, she was like, "Oh, she looks Korean." And he's like, "Oh, she's only part." And she's like, "Oh, well, she looks Korean." So I approve. So
Nice. There you go. Yeah,
worked
I
out in
feel
my favor.
there you go. I mean, you're gorgeous anyways. A Korean, half Latina, there it is. Jung's lucky he got you. Um, and then let's see. So when did you met each other's parents in like less than 3 months, right? So is that a
Mhm.
pretty big milestone for the both of you? Like how do you guys view meeting parents?
So I think with my family, he had just come over for a party. So we always have either a birthday, a cookout, something. This is like all pre-COVID 2018, like life's normal.
Miss
So
those days.
we I had it so that way it was when I had a lot of family over. So he still had to meet all the family members, but it was more like you can't be interrogated unless they're all grouped together, which I made sure they weren't all grouped together. So it was like I just warned them. I said, look, just don't scare him. Nothing like you have later to do that, but just like to get to know him. And it was very nice. My parents grew up here. I'm second generation, so they already knew, and they were like, okay, we're not gonna do anything weird. He seems like a nice guy. And then with his mom, I actually met her at the dry cleaners, and I learned how to work at a dry cleaners that day. And
Wow.
since then, I like occasionally will go and help. And so that's how we bond.
Gotcha, gotcha. Was
Yeah.
it a big step for Jung to introduce you to his mom?
So I think for him, it actually was. I think because I'm so accustomed to just, when you date someone, like family is like, if you don't vibe with the family, then I don't know how it's going to work out, especially because coming from my family, if you don't get along with my family and they're such a big part of my life, I can't see this going somewhere because their opinion does matter a lot to me. Um,
Mm,
but I guess it ended up just working out the way it was supposed to. I think it helped too that I spoke a little bit of Korean and his mom spoke a little bit of English. And so she understands what I'm saying, even though it's very broken.
there
So,
you go. At least there's some sort of communication, right? That's like better than none at
mhm.
all. Audience member says, what are some things to be aware of when dating someone of Korean descent? Asking for a friend. It sounds like he would like some advice about Korean culture and what I guess what would you recommend? Like what are your thoughts on that?
um, I mean, I feel like most Asian cultures, they're all very similar. Don't wear shoes in the house. Make sure you always
Definitely.
say hi to everyone. Like if they don't come up to you and say hi, you still have to go out of your way to say hi or they'll be upset. That is like the number one thing that my mom's always drilled in me, and she gets upset if people don't go and say hi to her. So make sure you always do
1000%.
that. And if you want to bring like something small when you meet the parents, like either flowers or like just something, it's a nice gesture. It could be like clementines, like just go clementines. They love fruit.
True,
Never go
true.
wrong with fruit.
Fruit and food. Chocolate. How do people feel about chocolate? That's always like the one thing that I bring is always dessert because it's easy. You
Hmm.
can go to the supermarket, get some cookies and bring it over. Um, so is there anything specific that you wanted Jung to do when he met your family?
So I actually didn't even bring it up to him, but he asked me what gifts he could bring from my parents. And so my dad
Oh,
loves Blue Label. So he got my dad a bottle, and my dad was shocked because
snap.
it's a couple $100s for a bottle. So he was very surprised. And then from my mom, he got my mom an orchid, which she still has to this day. And it's the only orchid that still has flowers, and she loves it. So
Oh,
he just asked me
dang.
like, what are your parents like? I want to get them something. So I didn't ball out quite as much. I just got his mom flowers and his dad. Um, oh, you can also get Korean parents, they love herbal medicines. You can get them at the Asian markets.
There
That's
you
another
go.
good one. Can never
Nice,
go
nice.
wrong.
Do you know what kind of herbal medicine they like? Just out of curiosity.
So you can either get blueberry flavored ones or the ones that come in like the red pouches that are liquid.
Uh,
They come in like
okay,
gift boxes. So that is like if you like actually don't know and you don't want to like offend them, just go for that.
gotcha. Good to know. That's good advice. Thanks, Mina. A lot of
Yes.
people are taking that very positively. Fruit and alcohol. Gotcha.
Yes.
Um, so then that kind of brings us to my next question. How did you know Jung was the one? Tell us about that.
Um, it's weird. Like, I never really had like a defining moment when he said something or he looked at me a certain way and I felt like he was the one. I think it was a culmination of generally we got along. We were, for the most part, headed in the same direction. He had himself established. I was now working in my field in DC. And I just felt like, you know what, things feel right. Your mom likes me. I like your mom. That's very important because
Huge.
husband's mother is a big part of your life in Korean culture. So I was like, that's like wonderful. My family loves him. He loves my family. So it kind of was just after we moved in because we wanted to see how it was because the relationship does change when you live together because when you only see each other for a couple hours or for like a day for a date, you always like you're like composed and you're ready. But when you're with someone 24 in the quarantine has proven to be the ultimate test.
I'm
But when you're
sure.
with someone 24/7, you learn of their bad habits. Like maybe they're clean when you come over because they clean before you come over, but they're not normally as clean as they let on. So you learn those things. Um, but I want to say like after moving in and being together for a couple months, he learned my habits, I learned his and like finer details, and it still works. And it was still a relationship where I could see us growing and we had the same like goals and trends. I think I definitely was pushing more to get married sooner than later because he was just,
Okay.
I'm a bachelor, I'm a guy, I'm in no rush. All of his friends waited until they were in their mid 30s to get married, mid to late 30s. And so he was like, there's no rush. And I was like, well, there's no rush, but if I want to have 4 kids, got to get a move on it. So,
Exactly. I mean, no rush
we
for
both
guys.
agreed.
There you
Yeah,
go.
so and then a year later, well, actually less than a year later, so October, we got engaged. So that was a year and a half of dating. We got engaged, and then we legally tied the knot in December, the day after Christmas. So a year and a
Oh,
day after I moved in. So
nice.
that's pretty fast, I will admit. But
It is. Yeah. But it works out. You're happy. And then now that you're officially married, would you say that moving in with somebody is like a deal breaker for you? Would you say that that's like one really important step before agreeing to marry someone?
I think nowadays it is, especially because the roles are not divided. Women aren't just staying at home and it's not their expectation to do X, Y, Z. So if he's working and I'm working, then we need to see how would we make all the other things work. Whereas in traditional older households, the men work and the women stayed home. Well, if we're both working, am I still going to be doing all those things? And how are you when, something happens, or if we get into a fight, how do you react? And I
Hmm.
think it's so important because, it's easy to love someone when they're at their best, but can you do it when they're maybe not at their best?
Right.
So I think
That's true.
definitely I think it helps to solidify a lot.
Gotcha. So what was when you moved in together, what were some things that surprised you about Jung when you found out spending all that time or like all the extra time?
Yeah. Um, so he's not as clean as he let on. So I
That's
just
why you said that.
yeah, so when I every time I came over, his house was very like the condo was very just minimal. Like there was no decor, just everything's white, sleek, almost like a sterile hospital environment, not very warm and welcoming. Um, so I figured, okay, he's just a very like doesn't like things and he's very clean. Well, he like leaves his clothes on the floor like everywhere and just like if he picks something up and he's standing somewhere else and puts it down, it doesn't go back to its home. And I'm very type A, so I'll be right behind him, like, okay, this needs to go in the hamper. Okay, this needs to go back to where it was. And so I'm constantly like tidying up and cleaning things.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I think it's okay because I enjoy cleaning and, making like organization. So it works, but I do get on him about putting things where they need to be.
I'm with you on that. I feel like they have to go
So
back in their homes. They just can't leave it out. Like for me, it's dishes. Don't
yeah.
leave dishes in the sink for more than 12 hours. 24 hours is too much. Like if it's the end of the day and it's not done, I'm gonna do it. So you want me
Yes.
to clean dishes, make sure those dishes are out of the sink by the time I go to bed. That's like the main thing. Um, and then in terms of like making it a home, what did you have to do to make it more, I guess, cozy? Because I remember you told us that like one time, it's like everything is just like white, and we're like, what? So what did you do to kind of make it more like yours and Jung's style instead of just Jung's bachelor pad? Because I'm guessing you moved into his
So
condo, right?
yes. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it was definitely a bachelor pad. Pretty much anything that resembles decor, I bought or I brought it. I had him add in his kitchen was bare empty. You can tell when a guy is a bachelor because his fridge has just water bottles and like beer. And that was literally his fridge. It had nothing in it. So I would come over and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna make something." He's like, I don't know that there's anything to make." And I would like look at his fridge. I'm like, "It's empty." So
No.
I was like, "This isn't working." And he had a good sized kitchen for himself because he never cooked. But I had him like install another cabinet, and then we ended up just finishing a patio because quarantine, we haven't been able to go out much. So I was like, we need to have outdoor space for the puppy. So we had to build
Exactly.
that. But
Nice,
it's
nice.
definitely been an overhaul. I think when it came to design, he was open to me adding things. It was just as long as it fit with his style, which we also have a very similar, like modern and sleek, but I just felt like sterile wasn't necessary.
I think yes, sterile is easy to take care of and clean, I guess, but it doesn't make you feel like a home. Like you want to come home and like have it be warm and cozy and like feel like it's
Hmm.
your space as much as Jung's like it's like together space, Because I feel like
Yeah.
the biggest thing about a relationship is how are you going to bring your lives together, right? And I feel when you're spending that much time with each other and you're thinking about marriage and thinking about the big picture, it's like how much do you have to change? How much can you actually like compromise on? So I guess going along those lines, how did you have to feel like you had a lot of compromise, or what was that like trying to marry both your life and his life together to create the marriage that you have now?
I think the good thing about us was that we had a lot of open communication. And so because I made it, um, I was very upfront that I wanted to have kids and for me, I do want to be a stay-at-home mom. That's my decision now. Down the road, if I decide it's not something that's for me, he's okay with it. He said, that's fine. We'll just have a nanny or put them in daycare. He said, whatever you're happy with, that's fine. If you want to stay home and raise them, that's fine.
Mhm.
As long as they learn Spanish, that's all that I want. So I think that because we have the open dialogue, it's like it's been really nice. And so we haven't had to worry about
Right.
too much compromise on things because we just take the time to discuss it and then yeah, I think I don't want to say that everything has definitely matched up. There's some things where like he works 6, 7 days a week. And so, the compromise for that is if he's working that many days, there are days when I can't just hang out on Saturdays because I help him cover the store. So I'm working on
Mm,
Saturdays outside of my normal job. And so
wow.
it's like we're just constantly working all the time. But it's like because I see the bigger picture and why he's doing what he's doing, it's not a compromise because I understand why he's doing it.
Right.
So I think
Gotcha.
that helps.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think as long as you understand the why behind your
Hmm.
actions, I feel like it's a lot easier for the other person to digest because what they see in front of them is just like, this is what it is. And then you don't understand why that is. And so that kind of creates a lot of conflict in many relationships. Um,
Yeah.
so going along those challenges then, were there any challenges at the start of the relationship because you guys met online you had to overcome and to like settle into that like more comfortable stage?
So I think when you meet online, it's almost like you create this fairy tale of yourself because you're putting forward the best version of yourself. You're not going to say, oh, I can be moody or I can be overly dramatic or just whatever. You don't like the other person doesn't know that. And so when you're first hanging out a meeting, you're also, you have the butterflies. So you're always happy and you're in a good mood and all those things. And so I think once you get more comfortable, that's when, I don't want to say your true personality, but that's when the butterflies go away and you feel like you can show your normal self and your vulnerabilities. And then it's just a matter of can that person accept me for my vulnerabilities? Or, like it was really just working to see can you still vibe beyond that? And it's like, I feel
Mhm.
like every time you move through these stages, it's another test of, you know, is this going to work? Because again, it's easy to love someone at their best, but can you still love them at their worst? And that's what you need to really know before you go into marriage because there's going to be a lot of days in the future that will not be so great. And you still want to
Right.
make sure that they're on your side.
Gotcha. And so you guys got married in December. It's been 8 months since you guys
Yes.
actually got married. Was there any difference between when just like moving in together and living together versus marriage, like way it is now?
Um, I think now, like, well, if we want to give a reason for why I want him to do something, like, can you take out the trash? And he's like, why do I have to do it? I'd be like, because you're my husband. So I think
You
we
pulled out the wife
probably say
card.
that more. Yeah, so I think we pull out the cards a lot more for those types of things, but um, we actually weren't going to recognize our legal marriage date. We were supposed to have our wedding ceremony in June, and so we were just going to still, fiance until June, but then our wedding got postponed in September, got postponed again to July
Uh,
next year, and I was like, you know what,
oh, no,
we're just
no.
gonna roll with it. So
All right.
I think
So,
it was now it's like really more like, okay, now we both wear our wedding bands and it's like really recognized. But within the family
mhm.
dynamic, his parents and my parents have recognized us as like husband and wife since we got
Okay.
legally married because that was
Gotcha.
important to them. Especially his mom and my dad were very like, oh yeah, just get married. And now we're married. Oh, so when are my grandkids coming? Like, where's my grandbabies? And so it's just always the next step, next step, next
Oh,
step. So
oh my gosh. So when do you have a plan on when you're gonna start having kids? Just curious.
so because the wedding is July of next year, I don't want to be giving birth or heavily pregnant. So I think we're gonna wait. If by
Okay.
some chance it happened now and I have the baby before the wedding, great, we're already legally married. But I think
There
after
you
the
go.
wedding next year is when we're gonna jumpstart on the family because I'll be 29 turning 30. And
Yeah.
yeah, four
Still
kids is
young.
a lot. Yes, still
It
young,
is.
but for four
Still young.
kids and making sure that there's space and like I think as a woman, I'm definitely very like I think in the future and I have to be concerned
Mhm.
about these things. And as a guy, he's like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Modern
I know.
medicine is great.
It's except it's not until it's not.
So
I feel like yeah, women are always planners because I feel a lot of my guy friends they just don't plan. So whenever like I plan things, it's always like, okay, we're gonna do this, and this on this day. Like we're gonna meet here at this time, and the guys are just like,
yes.
so I'm guessing now that you're in charge of all the planning, does Jung kind of leave it up to you, or just is he try to like kind of chime in on that stuff too when it comes
Like
to
when it
planning with like
comes
to planning and like light, not just like general like everyday like doing things plans, but like life plans. Does he ever have a really strong opinion about certain things?
so there's this is the one part that we actually decided to compromise on early. So if it's like a big decision and we both disagree, so if it comes down to like an investment or whatnot, that's his field. He does real estate law. And so he knows way more about that than I do. I defer to him. If it's like a small decision, like I want
Mm-hmm.
to have a house that's filled with X, Y, and Z, and I want to this and that, then if it comes between both of us, then I supersede his decision. So
Gotcha.
like wedding stuff is considered a small deal. So when it comes to like detailing those plans, he's like, I'll just tell me where and when. You have fun deciding. Just don't make me wear pink. That was the only request, no pink.
Okay,
Um,
that's fair.
yes. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But we
Gotcha.
actually have been looking at homes in Virginia for when we do
Oh.
have a family. And so that's been something that we're doing together. And so that's been really fun. We've already gone out to kind of explore some areas and
Oh,
just,
that's so
starting like light and
exciting.
casual. Yeah. So that's been really good.
Oh, all right. So we have 5 minutes left. So, one last audience question: are you going to teach your kids multiple languages, considering you're part Korean and part Latina, and then Jung is full Korean? So, what's that going to be like moving forward?
So I actually don't speak fluently either language. I can read in
Okay,
both and I can write in both, but
that's pretty good.
I it's yeah. I told my dad he has to speak to my children in Spanish, and so we're Cuban, and so Cuban Spanish is like super slang Spanish, but as
Uh,
long as they can speak some variation of Spanish, that's fine. So he's gonna teach my kids Spanish. My mother-in-law and my mom will teach them Korean, and then we'll just like kind of be there to like make sure that it actually happens because
gotcha.
between me and him, we speak English. So hopefully, I
Okay.
would want them to be multilingual. I, as a kid, was, and so I think it is important.
Yeah, I feel like with kids who are multilingual too, like they process things a lot faster from what I notice. Um,
Hmm.
Also, one more question for you. Why Virginia over Maryland? Some audience members want to know.
So honestly, like I'm from Montgomery County. My heart is with Maryland. I love
Oh,
crabs,
girl.
Old Bay, like everything.
Yes.
But and I went to Wooten, and so my mom went to Wooten. I went to Wooten. Love that school, but I just feel like for tax purposes, Virginia's better than Maryland. And
Agreed.
the restaurants are so much better. You
In
can't compare.
Annandale too.
So yes,
Yeah,
and
would
so
agree.
we're so close. It's like 20 minutes to Maryland, and my
Gotcha.
parents are in Frederick, so it's fine. No hard feelings.
Gotcha. And then one more question about kids. How many years apart do you want your kids, and do you want a specific gender first?
Ideally, I do want to have a son first because I
Okay.
was the oldest and I wish I had an older brother. So that's what I ideally want, but I'm comfortable with a girl first. If I have all girls, if I have all boys, as long as they're healthy and happy, that's what's most important to me. Um, if I can control the spacing, I think like every other year, like 2 years
There
is
you
good,
go.
the age gap. Yeah. But again, you can't fully decide these things. So,
Gotcha. That's true. Just let it happen when it does, right?
mhm.
All right. So the last couple of minutes, do you have any last words of advice for people who are currently in the online dating world that you would kind of want to impart your wisdom into the world?
I would say don't give up. Not saying that you have to just keep putting yourself out there. If you're tired, take a break, discover yourself, and see what's worked and what you want. Um, but don't give up hope because if what you want is to find that one person, that person's out there for you doing the same thing. And it might just be a matter of timing. Because for me, if I gave up and didn't message my husband that night, I don't know that we would have met, honestly. So
Hmm.
just keep true to yourself and yeah, don't give up. Don't be sad. Focus on yourself. Yes.
There you go. Thank you so much, Mina. This is so interesting. I learned a lot. I knew a lot of the story to start because chatted about this. So I appreciate you being so open and
Yes.
honest with us. I really
Thank you
appreciate
for
it. And
having me.
yeah,
This
of
was so much
course.
fun.
Yeah, I had fun. It's good to catch up too. It's been a hot second so you talked about this stuff. Is there any such shout outs you want to do?
Shout out to my husband Jung. You can catch this
Yeah.
later when I'm spilling all the dirt on you. No, I'm just kidding.
Ooh, ooh. Because you're his wife, that's all.
Yes.
All
Love
right.
you.
That's at the very least, there is love.
Yes.
All right. And also, I wanted to give a shout out to Brian Fung. Thank you so much for hosting as usual. You are awesome. This wouldn't be possible without him. And thank you to you guys for watching. It's been great getting your questions. Thank you for asking them. And thank you for being so curious. It's really been a lot of fun over here on this channel. So, again, just to wrap things up, I'm Daphne, and this is
I'm
Mina.
Mina.
Sorry. And then again, if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and like the video and hit subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and have a great Saturday. Signing off.